I'm not going to pretend that every moment with my kids is a joy. In fact, when we had the fourth, I sat there and I calculated out the odds that all four of them were going to be good at any one time, which are 1 in 16, right? Because it's 1/2 to the fourth power. So it's like, because at any given time, there's a 50% shot they'll be good or bad. Yeah. And so all four of them being good at one time, it's like 1 out of 16. Now, the good news is all four of them are only bad 1 out of 16 times, but most of the time, at least 1 or 2 of them are being a problem. That it's really rough. I mean, like when kids are being bad, when they're being jackasses, it's really, really tough. And they are. I mean, they can be really annoying and time consuming. And then again, there's nothing better in the entire world than when your kids are giving you a hug. There's nothing better than that. It is the best thing in the entire world.
Now, I'm curious how you prioritize and budget your time between raising a family, but also running a business and going through the startup, because I know what that could be like, and that's completely consuming, and sometimes that has to be the priority.
Yeah,
quite
so
a lot.
I will say that this is really why I think that it's important to start young on a lot of these things. So I didn't have kids until I was 30, right? So I was married at 24, but we didn't have kids for the first 6 years. So by the time we had kids, already we had launched Daily. We launched Daily Wire. Let's see, I had 1 kid by the time we launched Daily Wire. But she was very little. And my wife is the one who really had it hard. My wife was in medical school at the time. So she was in medical school all the way through our first 2, and she was still finishing residency pregnant with our 3rd. So that was really rough for her. Like basically, for me, it was always priorities. My kids always come first. Always, 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 always. So that means that if there is an emergency, then my kids come first. I think it's really important, I've talked about this a lot, to have a support structure that's not just you and your wife. Really, really important. So we purposefully located like a mile from my parents. We lived a mile from my parents our entire marriage. We purposefully put ourselves in a situation where if we need help, we can call somebody and they can come over, and my dad can come over, my mom can come over, they'll watch the kids, which is really, really important. This is why I say the community you choose to live is vital. Being part of a church or a synagogue, it's great because it immediately gives you connections with other people who are capable of helping you out if you need. It does take more than just you and your wife. Otherwise, it gets very overwhelming very quickly. Especially, we're lucky we can afford a nanny, but a lot of people can't. And we didn't have one for, a while. So I think that when it comes to the prioritization, I can tell you my schedule now, and then I can tell you, how we sort of did it while we were starting the company. Starting the company is a lot harder. As you say, the hours were insane. They're irregular. You work a lot of Sundays. That's very hard. The kids were very little at the time, so that made it a little easier because a 2-year-old doesn't care so much. Mm-hmm. As I said, my wife's in residency, and I would literally take just so that she could see the kids, for 15 minutes a day. I would take them in the car. I'd drive 45 minutes to her in the car with the kids. She'd walk out. She'd eat dinner in the car while visiting with the kids. She'd go back in. I'd drive home with the kids. I'd put them to bed. My day now, my kids don't know I have a job, right? Because that was my priority, so it remains my priority. So the way that this basically works, I wake up, my kids wake me up every morning at 6 a.m., and I get up and I make breakfast for them. I get them dressed. I get them ready for the day. Meanwhile, I might be just perusing the news on my phone to see if I have to supplement for the show. I leave the house at 7:45 because that's basically when they leave the house for school. I go into the show. I film the show. I film extras. I do phone calls. I try to work out. I try to get everything done between the window 7:45 a.m. and 3:30 p.m., which is when they get out from school. Very often, I'm the one who picks them up from school. I do not work from the time I pick them up from school to the time they go to bed, which right now is about 7:30. So for that 4-hour period, I'm basically at their disposal. There are exceptions. I mean, there's times when I'll have a business call and I'll have my dad come over, or the nanny watches them, or my wife, my wife doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to now. So she picks up a lot of that slack. But my goal is that basically between 3:30 and 7:30, I'm almost entirely at their disposal. They go to bed. I start working again. I pick up the phone. I make a few phone calls. I do what I need to do. If there's an emergency, people can get a hold of me, but I tend to be very terse. Both on the phone and in email. So I again, doing things quickly is very helpful. But segmenting the time like that means that my kids, they're not even aware that they get, when I go on a business trip for one night, they get upset. Where are you going? Or if I have work on, if I don't get home from work until 5, they're like, what's happening? Why is this happening right now? I'm lucky. I've been able to construct my life around that. Yeah. It wasn't always like that, but
Is it difficult for you to outsource that? Because I feel like you're very much you want things done. They have to be correct. They have to be in order. How is that outsourcing to other people and trusting them to do it to your satisfaction?
With regard to the company, you mean?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with regard to the company, so my view on hiring and firing, so I don't do the hiring and firing at Daily Wire, right? Jeremy really is more responsible. Caleb is really more responsible for that. I have a say into who's working on my show, and if I think somebody's doing a crappy job, I'll sound off about it. But I'm not the person who's in the interview meetings. But with that said, my general view of hiring and firing is that if you have to fire somebody, it's because it's your mistake, not theirs. Almost always. It was your mistake in putting them in a position where they were not going to succeed. I think that very often employers will try to cram a square block into a round hole. Or they'll say, I wish that this person were a thing. Just like dating, just like any other business relationship, you got to take people for what they are. And so the hard part, and then you have to let them be free to do the thing. You have to give them enough authority and enough responsibility that they can do the thing and they can take care of the thing, but enough responsibility that if the thing goes wrong, they also get held accountable for that, which means you have to give people clear metrics of success. You can't just be like, do a thing. It has to be, and here's what I want it to look like in kind of general outline, and you have to hit this mark. If you don't hit that mark, that's fine, but you need to explain to me why you didn't hit that mark. And usually firings occur because either bad direction from above, they didn't give people metrics to hit, or the metrics they gave were too vague, or bad direction, or micromanagement, people inserting themselves too much into the process and not letting the person take ownership of the thing, because people who work all want to take ownership of what they do. And then finally, you really have to be able to suss out, this is another one of kind of the sayings that we have at Daily Wire, is that you can't teach effort. You can't, if people want it, they want it. And if they don't want it, they don't want it. And you can't make somebody into a person who has effort, into a person who wants it. As much as there are lots of talented people and they just who don't want it enough, I'd much rather have the person who's like going to do the grunt work, who wants it, like the aggressive. I'd rather have that person who's slightly less talented than the person who's more talented and doesn't have the gumption.
We just had Papa John Schnatter on the podcast, and he had a great quote on that. He said, hire for attitude and train for aptitude. I think that's right. I mean, as long as you have like a central skill, as long as you have like the ability to be molded, that's 100% true, which is why I've advocated for a long time that I think that, I'd rather hire a bunch of kids out of high school who have 1450 SATs and no college degree than a bunch of kids with a college degree who have been told that, they are owed $150,000 a year for finger painting. If you give me like raw talent and grit, I'd much rather have that than somebody who's even been working in the field for 20 years. I'm a big fan of apprenticeships. I think, first of all, virtually nobody learns how to do a job by going to school. I think virtually everybody learns how to do a job by doing the job and doing it a lot and doing it many, many, many times. Like my number one piece of advice for people who want to get into my industry is do a bunch of stuff for free.
That's what I always say.
That's what we both did.
That's what Jack did. So Jack sent me 7 emails over the span of maybe 8 months. Said, I want to come work with you. I'll do anything you want to. Follow it up.
No skills.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay me. I just want to work. Give me something to do. Please give me something to do. Please. Months later, it was almost a year later, I said, okay, fine. Here's some busy work for you to do. He finished it in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And it was like 18 hours of work. He's like, give me more.
Yeah.
And
right.
so
That's
that
the way you
blossomed.
That's the way you do
so
it.
many different things.
I mean, my mom was very much like that. My mom started off as a secretary. She had an ed degree from Boston University, and she started off as a secretary at a film and TV company because there was an opening in the paper, and she ended up as vice president of the company because that's what she would do. It was just like get in and grind, just grind, and learn how to do the thing and get good at the thing.